to mention to you that this program is being recorded. Good afternoon. I'm Julie Muckamel, co-president, along with Hannah Hostick of the Stirling Library Friends. And on behalf of the board of the Friends, we'd like to thank you for joining us for the Stirling event today. Seeing so many of your smiling faces makes us all so happy, while reminding us of how much we miss you, and we remain deeply appreciative for your support over the pandemic. Without you, we would not be able to offer the amazing schedule of lectures, group events, which have enhanced so many of our lives over the past year. Pablo Picasso wrote that art washes away the soul of the dust of everyday life. Today's program is designed to wash away some of the pandemic dust from our lives by connecting us to a diverse group of talented artists who are making exciting and compelling art in many different media forms. Before the artists are introduced, I wanted to let you know that we have two very special guests attending today. Allison Grubbs, the director of Broward County Libraries, and one of our honorary board members, Beam Fur, Broward County Commissioner. They're both in our Zoom audience. Allison and Beam, the board and our Friends members, thank you so much for joining us today. I'd also like to thank the curators that advised us for this showcase. Sophie Bonet, curator of Art Serve in Fort Lauderdale. Megan Kent, curator of the Art and Culture Center of Hollywood. Juliana Ferrero, artist, arts administrator, arts educator, and curator, who is also founder and art director of Nomad Art Projects. Robin Vegas, artist and executive director of Business for the Arts of Broward. And Ellen Cohen Berman, artist and in-house curator for the Fort Lauderdale by the Sea Plunge Beach Resorts, Plunge into the Arts program, a new initiative that aims to help local artists flourish. Today, we have asked outstanding South Florida artists to talk about their creative process. Keep in mind that you can maximize your experience if you select the side-by-side speaker option at the top of your screen. And I'm going to give you a minute to do this. Go to the top of your screen and click on View. And then once you have clicked on View, you will see the side-by-side speaker option. I'm going to give you a moment to do that, and I'll repeat it. Go to the top of your screen and click on View. And once you click on View, you will see the side-by-side speaker option. And this will give you the maximum experience of this art show. Also, we've disabled the chat during the artist presentation, but once the artists have finished, we will open up the chat again. It's now my pleasure to introduce Michelle Drummond, who creates 3D forms made of yarn, glue, and acrylic. Michelle?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm always delighted to provide insight on my work and my process. I'm a mixed media fiber artist, and I create work by manipulating multicolored, multi-weighted yarn, glue, and acrylic paint on and off canvas. I also incorporate wood panel as my work gets more three-dimensional. And my process is really, when a thought comes to me, I create the work. I don't normally sketch the work. I just start building out by layering individual strands of yarn using different weights. I am from Jamaica originally. I came here as an international student, so most of my work is inspired by my experience here and current events. So just to give you a little insight on my background. I know I'm under time constraints, so I'll move to the next slide, please. So this work is called Lost for Words, and it was inspired by the theme, a book theme. the process behind creating this, it stems from a couple questions about technology and books. And the questions are, one, are books becoming obsolete with the evolution of technology? And two, our brains deteriorating because we're so focused on technology and not taking a physical book and reading it. So this, I chose this because I think it definitely ties to the importance of having a physical library and continuous reading and expanding your knowledge. So next slide, please. This piece is called Navigating the System. And this really ties to my experience here in America, coming from Jamaica, and figuring out just creative ways of achieving my goals and getting through hurdles in a new environment with new problems. So, and if you notice, it's in the form of a question mark. So that ties to the various questions that come to me, and then trying to figure out creative ways of answering those questions and navigating the system. And next slide, please. This is opportunity, and this is one of the first pieces that I really pushed myself to manipulate the medium and pushing the medium of yarn, which is supposed to be a soft textural material, into something more structural and sculptural. So opportunity, it really ties to grasping or having opportunity in the palm of your hands and taking advantage of it while the time is of essence. So this is pretty much significant to me because this is one of the first challenging aspects of creating a form using fiber, and not just an abstract form, but a physical form that represents, you know, something that it's a hand. So I wanted to present this piece because it was the beginning of my pushing the boundaries of my creativity and my medium and my dexterity. And with that, I'd like to, I guess, open the floor for any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. We're going to take questions at the end, okay? Our next artist is Christian FENECK, who creates abstract architectural color spaces. Christian?
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy to share my work anytime I can. My work is kind of architecturally based. I came from a slightly different kind of navigation than a lot of other artists. I went to architecture school and actually worked as an architect for a number of years before I started to kind of fold in a little bit more perceptual color work that just blossomed into just a full architectural kind of art career out of that. But my work is not necessarily about any particular narrative, but it's more of an exploration. Actually, if you go to the next slide, you can see the first work. I know what I look like. Here's an example. My work is, you know, architecturally based. A lot of the forms are based off of architectural perspective information, and then using color, and based off of Joseph Albert's interaction of color, trying to find ways that color can change the way you understand depth and space, and use that as a way to kind of augment and create these spaces that for me are somewhat remembered, but also fictive spaces. I make them up, but they're also blended with places from my memory, places I've designed, just trying to get things that are a little bit more to the experience of perception of how we understand the world. Actually, we can go to the next slide. If you notice, the titles of all my work are kind of super sexy names. They're just numbers. I use that because I see this as a continuing process of exploration as I'm trying to get a better handle on how I see space and I understand color and share that as best I can. So I number the pieces as it's just the next phase in a process as I go through it. The process of these, I mean, I do mostly painting, but I also do installation work. sometimes I have the urge to build these things three-dimensionally, or at least an experience three-dimensionally. But these are done all on acrylic on wood panels, because I need something very stable for this very layered process that I use with my work. Actually, the next slide. You can also see some pattern making into there. That is another thing that is actually fairly new with the pandemic. I'd be happy to talk about that at the end. I know we have a question about how the pandemic has influenced our work. But some of that is also bringing back some of architectural conventions on how, old school architects, when I learned it, it was all analog. So I use a lot of analog techniques in order to kind of understand how we kind of represent color in space. I guess that's it for now. I'll happy to ask questions. Hopefully you guys are remembering, because I'm in the beginning and there's a lot of interesting work to see. Thank you.
That is so true. So much interesting art to see. Thank you, Christian. Our next artist is Tom Grill, whose work he calls his work photocubism. Tom examines a scene from different perspectives. Tom?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having me. I've been involved in photography for, well, more years than I care to remember. I began teaching photography at the University of Brasilia, and later on I wrote about 6 books on photography. That was in the film era. Yes, I go back that far. But today everything is digital. I do everything in digital. I'm going to be showing you some images tonight from a series I call The Odyssey. And The Odyssey has to do with my exploration of the planet we live in and the perils that it is facing today. Now, I do not believe that art should preach, and my images do not preach. I create what I hope are just beautiful images and interpretations of scenes, so that we can admire them so much that we can get involved with them, and it forces us more to become involved with the world we all live in and share, and hopefully we'll do better to take care of it. Can I have the first slide, please? So this series of images that I do borrows from cubism, the technique of illustrating space volumetrically by moving through the space to reveal alternate views of the same scene. In addition to the spatial reconstruction, the process adds an element of time, and I'll discuss that and show you that a little bit later, to the works, as the various components of the scene are photographed from the different perspectives and different moments, and later assembled into a larger, more comprehensive experience. The advent or the development of photography as it went on from when I began with film, where we had lenses, of course, that didn't even autofocus. We didn't have light meters built into cameras. And today we have all of that and much, much more. The camera can pretty much take the picture all by itself while I'm still asleep, and often does. At any rate, what the camera has done by extending its abilities to us is it allows us to explore a scene more than just concentrate on one click image of that scene. Now, if you look at this image, which I call Florida sunrise, and all the images I'm showing you tonight, by the way, are of Florida. I call Florida sunrise. I go and I photograph the sunrise on Boca Beach quite often. If you're ever there, say hello to me. Sometimes I'm there with a drone, as I was for the middle shot there. Sometimes I'm there, most of the time I'm there with my camera, or both. Now, this is actually just one sunrise. And you will notice how I take elements of that sunrise and I put them together in a way that makes it one harmonious piece that becomes more than just the sunrise. It becomes the work of art in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And for instance, the partial image on the right-hand side where you see the blur, in that I'm actually introducing what a camera can do. I had to use neutral density filters on the camera so that I was able to blur a sunrise, which is a very hard thing to do, by getting a very slow shutter speed. But then I combine that with harder shots, although on the left. And the colors that I use in all these images are derived from the images. So everything, or from the scene, excuse me. So everything that you see in the images I'm going to be showing you are that. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Now, one of the things I love about Florida is, well, it's vegetation. It's absolutely gorgeous and it's very symmetrical. And I kept this particular piece, which I call Sol Palmetto Symmetry. I kept it very, very symmetrical to emphasize that. And the color of it, I absolutely was trying to capture that wonderful silvery greenish blue that was in the particular scene. Could I have another one, please? Next slide. One of my favorite places to photograph in Florida is the Everglades. These are all helicopter shots. You're not allowed, it's illegal to fly drones in national parks. So I've been using helicopters to go in there and grab these scenes. And I've been trying to make abstract patterns of the Everglades as the main central image is. And then I've also will go onto the ground and I will drive around, and it might take me several days to put together one of these images. Like in the lower right, you'll see the blue water there, but that water, you'll notice how rhythmic it is. It's almost like it was put on a grid, but that is because that's the way the water through the Everglades flows. And I'm trying to show that. And I'm trying to emphasize it by including lines like on the left-hand side there, those 3 lines that kind of mimic the idea by going in a different direction as the water was going on the right-hand side. So I think I might have gone over my limit of talking here. So I will go on to the next person. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's my pleasure to introduce Jordan GUZMAN, who uses mixed media to explore mysteries of humanhood. Jordan?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really, really excited to share my work and have you all listening in and be amongst a lot of talented artists. So thank you. I want to talk a little bit about my background. My parents immigrated from Central and South America in their teens to New York, and then eventually moved down to, to Kissimmee, Florida, where I was born and raised. I moved to South Florida after graduating with a Bachelor's of Fine Arts and specializing in painting and minor in entrepreneurship at the University of Central Florida. And I came to South Florida specifically because I didn't want to move out of state or move or live anywhere else. And I knew that, you know, the South Florida had a scene that I wanted to be a part of and grow while still also being connected to my family. And I, upon moving here, I worked at a Reggio Montessori school where I was an atelierista, and it's an art teacher, and also co-admin of a preschool and elementary school. And during my time there, I was really inspired to work with a lot of kids and to get into the artistic process and also share my knowledge with young children and people of all ages. Could I have the next slide, please? After acclimating to kind of work life after college and entering the fine arts world and showing my artwork in a lot of different exhibits, several group exhibitions, eventually through just a lot of navigating the art world, I was honored to have a solo exhibition at Bailey's Contemporary Arts and was invited by Juliana Ferrero, and that connection has really made an impact on me and the work that I want to do in the Broward County art community. And for this solo exhibition that I had, the kind of crux, the artwork that was the crux of this show is the painting that you see right now called Photographs and Memories. And it has very special meaning to me because I had just come to realize that a lot of my artwork was about a coming of age story and self-discovery and self-knowledge and just considering our background and our roots and how and all the identifiers that we use to define ourselves and how to navigate that and see what are parts of ourselves that we'd like to keep because of what we were born into or grew up in, and what are parts that we need to change as we all grow into adulthood. And I feel like that never really ends, because some things stay with you and some things go. Next slide, please. So this work, Amiga Todo Cambia, and I actually have it with me right now, is about change and about coping with life's many changes. And I found that again as a major theme in my artwork. And after having this exhibition, I came upon just a realization of the bigger conversation that I wanted to talk about with other people, that I could not only say with visual art, which led to my art colleague and I starting an artist meetup and kind of a forum where artists can bring their artwork and kind of do exactly what it is that we're doing right now in a public setting, and to talk about the deeper meaning of art and life. And that has led to also me creating a podcast where I can talk in words and speak about, you know, these just existential questions that we all grapple with. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about how the pandemic has affected our sense of self and also as a collective. So those conversations are always very interesting to me. And whenever I look at art, I always want to dive into the deeper meaning of it and how it affects us on a personal level. Can I have the next slide, please? During our time at these artists meetups, we have, and I think about this painting and how, what it has meant to me, or what my artwork has meant to me at different stages in my career in the arts. And this one in particular is kind of channeling an inner vitality, and like from like your gut and your just like an energy source in you that kind of propels you into the world and gives you that vitality to experience a lot of joy and just childlike wonder in life. And so doing these artist meetups have really helped me kind of attract an audience and a group of people that, you know, I can share that desire with. So thank you everybody so much for listening.
Thank you, Jordan. And our next artist is Luke Jenkins. Luke creates art and furniture using traditional machinery and digital fabrication. Luke? See, is Luke on mute?
Sorry, I totally forgot to unmute myself. I'm Luke. My background is I got my bachelor's in fine arts from the Rhode Island School of Design and Furniture Design, and my master's in sustainable design from the Design Academy Eindhoven in the Netherlands. I've been in and out of South Florida for about half my life. I worked at the NSU Art Museum as their exhibition designer and head installer, and at the Florida Atlantic University School of Architecture, teaching furniture design and running their wood shop and their digital fabrication labs. About 3 years ago, I opened In Bloom Studio in Fort Lauderdale, where I do custom furniture, art fabrication for other artists, and a lot of different types of installations. It's a full wood shop with digital fabrication equipment such as CNC routers and laser cutters. Those are basically machines that you design what's going to be cut out on a computer and then programming it into the machine, and it cuts it out for you. And I utilize those machines in my personal work as well. Next slide, please. This is Zinnia 1. It is a piece of plywood that has been carved through with a CNC router. So I'm investigating the plywood as an industrial material using industrialized processes such as CNC routing to carve into the material and kind of like excavate through the different layers. Plywood is made with a bunch of thin layers of wood all glued together. And I'm trying to show the material as something new. It's generally seen as a pretty, mundane, banal material, and I'm very interested in investigating it and showing its individual processes and really like showing its materiality. This is two different zinnia flowers. One is in partial bloom, one is in full bloom, and the patterns between them are investigating this kind of potential energy in between the flowers. Next slide, please. So I was talking a little bit about pattern making in the previous slide. This one it's much more straightforward in terms of pattern. It's called a progression bench. It's using recursive geometry to kind of design everything. So when I make a piece of furniture, I generally use the perimeter of the top as the geometry, the kind of ancestor of everything else that gets created. So once those 6 circles are defined, everything else is based off of that. The shape of the legs, all of the carving paths that are within the piece itself. This is a bench I made. It's like about a 3 or 4 person bench. And you can pop on to the next slide, please. Thank you. This is frangipani. It's a photograph I took of the frangipanis that are out front of my shop, and it is kind of merging what I discussed a little bit in the first 2 slides together. It's kind of layering different amounts of information to create a piece, utilizing carving through the plywood. If you look at the bottom left corner, you can see this kind of like hazy brown circle. That's actually the layer of glue that's in between each layer of the wood and the plywood. So I'm trying to have these different elements in the plywood pop through in the composition as well. And I think that's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dana KLEINMAN of KXZ, who with her creative partner and sister, Ruth Avra, creates sculpture that merges metal and painting. Dana?
Hi, thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes, but they're on mute.
I'm okay. It's just not showing my screen, but hopefully everybody can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, it's actually KX2, not KXZ.
Sorry.
KLEINMAN, it's our last name, KLEINMAN ×2. It's me and my sister working together. She couldn't be with us today. She's in Canada, freezing at a gallery event, and I get to be here in sunny Florida talking to you. So I think I got the better end of the deal. Next slide, please. We'll jump right into the work. So this is the work that we're probably best known for as most recognizable. We call it the Pipeline series. This body of work solidified after Hurricane Irma in 2017, and we have many different groupings and iterations of this body of work. But basically, I moved here in 2017, and within 1 week, Hurricane Irma hit. I moved from New Mexico, so from the desert, and it was always fascinating to me for me to realize that all of the different water issues that we had in the desert were very similar to the water issues that we have here, getting clean water to communities. So after Hurricane Irma, I was in Hollywood, and it was a full week of where we had to boil the water in order to drink it. And just fascinating that an area with so much water still had issues in getting clean water. So this work is repurposed industrial pipe, so big, heavy aluminum pipe that we're slicing up and polishing, and then the inserts are textural painting on wood. Next slide. So this piece is called Tidal Shift, and it incorporates a graph projection of the high tide and low tide shifts from currently until 2100. So basically the high tides are going to get higher and the low tides are going to get lower. And the inspiration, physical inspiration for these was, I'm sure you all have seen when you go down to the docks or the marinas, you see the high tide markers and the low tide markers on different posts, man-made posts. So this is high polished, mirror polished industrial stainless steel with textural painting that goes up to the level of the projected tide. Next slide, please. So this work is work that we've been working with a lot during the pandemic, and we call this the Obstruction Series. And before I forget, we currently have a immersive installation of this body of work at the Kimpton Goodland on Fort Lauderdale Beach. And it was funded by a Broward County grant. So thank you to Broward County Cultural Division. We were able to do a large installation of the work. And there'll be a reception February 22nd. So everybody is invited, the public is invited. But this work incorporates, again, the repurposed industrial pipe. And then the color that you see is actually about 10 feet by 10 feet per pipe of hand-painted canvas that we are then cutting up the painting and stuffing it, inserting it into the pipes. And this represents some of the flooding that we see due to an overtaxing of our infrastructure, as well as human trash and debris that gets stuck in the system. I look forward to answering questions later, and thank you.
Thank you, Dana. I'd like to introduce our next artist, ZIPPORAH Michelle. ZIPPORAH uses mixed media to create expressionist and symbolist inspired portraits. ZIPPORAH.
All right. Hello, guys, fellow artists, audience out there. Oh, wait. Can you guys see me on my camera?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Just making sure. So my name is ZIPPORAH Michelle. As the Stirling staff mentioned, I do expressionist and symbolist inspired work, though most of them do appear in, well, mosaic and paint dabbing in practice. But most of my work is inspired by by the works of Frida Kahlo, less on the self-portrait, but more on the cultural aspect and study of anthropology and social environment in the form of portraits. So first slide. This one is Onabugeisha, Chitose, and Yoshimasa. This is actually the history. This is a representation of the history of the Japanese female warriors between the 1600s and to what was going to be the end of the 18th century. At first, we only know only the shoguns and the Japanese warriors known as samurai, but there were in fact the Onabugeisha, who were the Japanese female warriors who in fact protected the estate. It wasn't just staying at the household at home. Like, these were trained warriors. Like, they were pretty much the samurais of the household. But until like before the end of the 17th century, once war starts trickling down and the whole society started to become more structured, they stopped depending more on females becoming soldiers. And now they're just depicted as stories, but they are still held in high regard today. Next slide. This is one of the other pieces in which another cultural aspect I do highlight is, well, aspects of history that should be highlighted but aren't that much. But this is a part of an Egyptian gods series that I've done. While a lot of people know Isis or Osiris in the Egyptian god history and goddesses, this is actually Nefertem. He is the god of perfumes and the blue lotus. The blue lotus is actually a medicinal plant that's been used in ancient Egypt by nobles many times during those times. One of those notably being Queen Nefertiti for basically therapeutic purposes during parties. Next slide. And this one was for a native series piece. This is Temecula girl, Ella, finishes painting her face. It's one of the activities done in the Temecula tribe, well, a tribe that ended up trickling down around the 18th century, once American civilization really started kicking in, and the entire tribe in Florida, well, this tribe lived in Florida around the Okeechobee area and West Palm Beach. And mostly what their culture did was a lot of fishing, along with basic hunting and gathering, but a lot of their trade was mostly fishing and farming and a lot of hunting. And another one of the things that they were pretty much noted for was, well, as an activity, was not just fishing, but also face painting. And that's the end of my work.
Thank you so much, ZIPPORAH. Next, we have Deborah Perlman, who makes abstract paper sculptures that depict spaces somewhere between real and imagined. Deborah?
Hello.
Oh, Deborah, you're on mute. You have to unmute.
Hello, everyone. I create 3D paper sculpture in bas-relief that is mounted on the wall. My work is actually almost depicts almost but not quite real spaces. Spaces that are somewhere between authentic and imagined, spaces that slip in and out of reality. I use paper and adhesive to create three-dimensional forms that are then adhered to the piece. When I adhere them, I am juxtaposing forms and shapes and to highlight their points of contact and the shadows that they cast, and with the goal of achieving a dynamic composition that captures my vision. My inspiration comes from many places. It could be a walk in the park. It could be something happening globally that affects me, or it could be a very personal emotion. And I'm going to share with you some of those inspirations now. Next slide. This is called Secret Woods. And this piece was inspired by a photo that I took at the Secret Woods Nature Center in Dania Beach. The center is designed with walkways that winded their way throughout the space, giving visitors an opportunity to get close to nature and to appreciate the natural species there. So pathways like walkways, corridors, and ramps really intrigue me and pull me in. This particular pathway was just incredible because it had branches of the trees hovering over them and creating like a canopy effect. And that's what I try to depict here. Next slide. This is called In Harmony Daybreak. This is one of a series of 3 pieces that I created that include photos of the natural world juxtaposed with architectural forms. I wanted to express my hope for an actual healthy and respectful coexistence between that which is man-made and the natural world, and to highlight the uncertainty that we face on the planet and ask the question, will we be able to sustain and protect the life that we know now, or will the changes in our planet and our climate force us to live in a new reality? Next slide. This piece is called Sanctuary. In this work, I wanted to create an inner sanctum, a place for reflection, meditation, and peace. Spirituality has seemed to be top of mind for me these days, and I think it's because of the chaos, the crises, the divisiveness that we are seeing in the world. And it compelled me to find my own spiritual center and to seek inner peace. So in wrapping up, I invite you into these spaces. I invite you to ask questions like, what is it? Where is it? What do I see and feel? And do I find myself in it or not? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's my pleasure to introduce our last artist, Sri PRABHA. Sri creates multidisciplinary artwork integrating geography, nature, time, human origins, and the cosmos. Sri?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Can.
Thanks for having me. And so I wanted to, first of all, thank you for sharing your time with me, and also seeing some of the artists that I'm already familiar with and some new artists. It's great to see you guys. I moved here in 2010 from San Francisco. My background is in psychology and the arts. So I create work that asks the fundamental question of where are we as a society, as a civilization? Where are we going? Are we evolving? What are we doing on Earth? Are we shepherds? Are we destroying the Earth? How do we coexist and go forward? So if we go to the first slide, please. So this one is a piece about just being human and getting lost in space. This piece is called Dreams Made Real. I just put Coralie Gleason was the guest curator at Art and Culture Center. This is just for scale to kind of see how big the piece is. She curated a show at Orlando Museum of Art, in which I was in the Florida Prize show in 2019 with a big installation, immersive piece. So this one was at Art and Culture Center, and Megan Kent's the curator there, and she's really great to work with too. I've shown quite a bit there as well. And we'll go to the next slide, please. And if you can hit play. So this piece was done for Miami-Dade and Art in Public Places. Obviously, there's video, light, sound, and the multi-dimensional metal elements that were water jet cut. So this piece really talks about migration of people, as well as the flora, fauna, migratory patterns that we are host to. A lot of birds. I love watching all the birds come and just have their migratory patterns when they're traveling all across from the north to south American continents. So it's kind of, again, being in tune with nature and being good shepherds, recognizing those elements, as well as bringing that dialogue into a contemporary art society. And then if we can go to the next slide, please. So again, this one, this piece I did like 4 or 5 years ago. I showed this at the MoCA Miami for the Cultural Consortium show. And this one has all kinds of really interesting material, mixed media, video. You can see dinosaur bones, petrified wood, resin, paper, mixed media, kind of a little bit of everything. So again, it's kind of bringing in all of the world, and also our technological achievements and underpinnings, as well as how do we kind of skirt the line between technology and nature, and where is, like, you know, where do we, it's kind of like we need to control the technology, not the other way around, not be subservient to the tech that we're surrounded by. So this is a dialogue about how do we address it and then pull back from it. And with that, I think I'm almost out of time. So thank you, and I'm done.
Thank you, Sri. Well, it's a wow for each and every artist. What a joy it is to hear so many different insights into the artistic process and to see the quality of work being created by our South Florida artists. I'd like to ask Co-President Hannah Hostick to cover the question and answer portion of this program.
Thanks, Julie. I'm feeling a bit of sensory overload right now with a lot of philosophical questions, and my desire is to engage in dialogue with each of the artists individually, but we don't have time for that. We did receive a few questions earlier, and I'd like to pose the questions to the artists. Please feel free to jump in with your answers. What do you feel is your biggest challenge that you face as an artist in South Florida, maybe even during the pandemic? Any response to that? Dana, unmute yourself. Great.
I'll jump in on that since it's a problem I'm going through right now. Specifically in South Florida, artists need space. We need space to work, and space right now in Florida is a big problem to find affordable space. So we're having, not just, everybody's experiencing the housing crunch, rent being high, housing being high. With commercial space or space outside of your home to work, it's even worse, I would say, at the moment, where, Miami has done a great job with subsidizing, with the government and private entities, patrons sponsoring and subsidizing artist studios like the Bakehouse and Fountainhead. But in Broward, we don't really have that. And so I would say that's a big problem for artists in where that I'm experiencing.
Dana, I'm happy that earlier you mentioned how you received a grant from Broward County, and that we do have Broward County Commissioner Beam Fur on our event. And I think that hopefully he'll hear, or he's heard, what you've said in terms of space. Beam, I don't know if you want to respond to that or just think about it, or.
I'm happy to, because I think it's, first of all, what a great event. I didn't get museum fatigue or anything. It's like, having a chance to see so many good artists so quickly. It's just a great way to do this. But I think Dana's she's on track there, because I know my wife's an artist, my sister's an artist, and I know they actually had to go to Miami to get space as well. So I think I may want to hear more from them as to, are they looking for like a cooperative? Are they looking for ways where they can have a number of artists under one roof? Is that the way we should approach it? Maybe we should try to get money through the Broward County Cultural Division to subsidize that. I welcome to hear from them whenever, if they have some ideas of a way to go about it. And it is needed. It is needed. The space is just too expensive for most artists to try to rent one place by themselves. I think that we're going to have to find some places where we can do it cooperatively.
Okay, Sri would like to respond to that, Commissioner.
Yeah, this has been a pain in the you-know-where for years. I've been trying to have a cooperative. We almost got a building about 2 years ago on Hollywood Boulevard. We almost were, and Dana knows about this too. We were trying to get 8-9 people in the building, downtown Hollywood. It's still empty, and they were going to put in like a bowling alley or something there. But it's like, I've been we've been trying to do this with a couple of other artists for like 4 or 5 years, and every time things fall apart because we're battling with developers, and again, that's whatever it is. But still, there's no. There's just not enough space. And Fountainhead, actually, I was at Fountainhead, and then eventually I left because I got tired of driving down to Miami every day. It's just, a headache. But actually, Fountainhead actually is going to be closing in the next 6 months also, because that building also got bought out. So they're gonna, that's like in the right, that's also going away. But we in Broward County specifically, I got tired of this rigmarole with spaces, and I'm kind of using my house as a base camp. And I'm getting a lot of things fabricated and just trying to work out of what I have here, because it's just, I don't want this frustration in my life. I'd rather create and move forward than try to, battle developers and real estate and all that stuff, because it's too much of a psychological, spiritual drain, because we need to be making the work. We need to address what does the county want things to go to? Because I know there's a bunch of empty government buildings scattered throughout the county. I know they're there. We just need to like get in on one of those buildings and do something about it. There's a lot of like Torpedo Factory up in Alexandria, Virginia is a great idea. They have a studio and gallery spaces. There's like, 70, 80 spaces. It's an interesting idea to do something like that, or like Bakehouse or whatever. I know there's challenges, but yeah, sorry. Yeah,
I don't mean to cut you off, but maybe today we've planted the idea or encouraged Broward County to even go further with an idea for some kind of facility for artists. And I encourage you to all be in touch with Beam. He's available to us and to speak with him. But I think also Beam, next year when we hope to repeat this event, given how incredible it is right now, we'll have to invite your wife and your sister. We didn't know they were artists.
They're very good ones.
Can I add to that? And Dana bringing that up and Suri adding to that is when you don't have a space to meet up, and artists are isolated just making artwork in their homes, artists need each other to feed off of each other and start sparking conversations and seeing, again, what I was saying about the deeper meaning behind our art and our work. And one of the things and why I created with my colleague this group, AIM, or Art in Its Meaning in South Florida, is because, a lot of artists, some artists went to art school and they had that community, and you are like 24/7 inundated in the arts, and you eat, breathe, and sleep, and it's just all around you. And then leaving that, starting acclimating into life, and then you're now relying on your partner, like your friends, like who don't have the language, the vocabulary, just that, the way that artists think. Not having that community or not having that space for artists to meet up is like you're just stuck with you and your thoughts, and then when you finally present it, you haven't had a lot of time to really have a lot of conversations about your artwork. So right now with the group that we've started, we've kind of been relying, we're renting a little bit of space, but now have relied on people to host us at different areas inside the South Florida community to kind of have these spaces. And we were hearing feedback, like, this is really needed, like, we don't have this. And I'm like, this is South Florida. Like, what do you mean we don't have this? Like, this is why I moved here. And it's just been great to kind of like, okay, let's build it and they'll come, like, and it'll happen. And that has been like really great to not only just find pockets of spaces to showcase your art, but to also talk about it and with other artists in particular.
Can I talk for a second?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy to work. I just put my number and contact information in the chat. I know the county is looking at, trying to find spaces beyond ArtServe, maybe buying or trying to use the old Young at Art building for spaces, stuff like that. So we're looking for it, but I kind of need to hear what size, what kind of things people are needing, and I'm happy to work with you. I think this is absolutely important, and I know, how tough it is. So somebody's talking about Studio 18 and Pembroke Pines. Yeah, same kind of thing. So happy to work with you. Give me a call.
I am very encouraged by this conversation. And I think that, we did this program because we wanted to hear from artists, but if it could result in something, tangible happening for the artists, that would be remarkable.
I mean, the entire space above the Hollywood Library is empty. I don't know if they've ever considered it, but that's a huge space.
Well, let's take care of that now. Let's sign up new artists. Let's rent some space.
That's like a giant space. I don't know. That's up to Hollywood, but that's not a county. That's not county, that part.
Wow.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Okay, well, this sort of leads into the next question, I guess, which is another tangible kind of thing. What advice would the artist give to someone who's interested in buying art, collecting art? Do you have any advice on where do you start? You know, anyone? You can push your own art when you answer.
Well, I'll jump in. You know, kind of one of the things is, you know, just being interested in art. I mean, doing things like this, I'm glad that there's, you know, quite a few people on the call. I'm, you know, happy that events like this are showing off art, and just being exposed to it, you start to find things you like. And I have always, you know, the people that buy my work, some are collectors, some it's just, they just like it. And that's probably the best advice, is buy things that you find interesting, that kind of feed into, you know, kind of what you want your life to, you know, to be surrounded with. It doesn't have to be anything more grandiose than that, but just what's something that interests you, and what is beautiful, and be interested in art. I mean, the more you see, the more you'll be exposed to, the more everything will start to make sense in the art world. You know, events like this, going to open studios, going to, you know, even small art shows all over the place. I mean, there's an art show nearly every day in South Florida somewhere. You just have to be willing to go.
That's great advice. Would any of the other artists like to add to that? No?
I think maybe, you know, tapping into, I feel like, you know, as somebody on the other side, not collecting art, but making art in the hopes that somebody would, you know, want to collect, is I think, you know, a lot of my work has happened through, or collections are through other millennials, you know, like, well, myself as a millennial, but other millennials who are starting to collect art now, like people who are starting to collect art and not people who have maybe been collecting for a while. So I think like that made me rethink about who I wanted to, you know, reach out to, and who my audience really was, and start considering different, you know, demographics for who was, you know, who was collecting.
Wow, interesting. Okay, well, it's 12:57. We have so many more questions, but in all fairness to everyone, we're going to end. Julie, do you want to end the program for us?
Yes, thank you, Hannah, and thank you to all the artists. I know that we have, each and every one of us has enjoyed this hour so much with all of you, and we do hope that it will continue on in future programs. So on behalf of the Board of the Friends of the Stirling Road Library, we want to thank our guests, Beam Fur, Broward County Commissioner, and Allison Grubbs, the Director of Broward County Libraries. We want to thank our guest artists, curators, and all of our members for joining us for this wonderful event today. And as a reminder, we will be sending you a copy of this presentation so that you can review it at your leisure. And we hope to see you all in person next time, and we hope that's very soon. So thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And it's been fabulous to see each and every one of you. Bye, everybody. See you soon. Thank you. It's really wonderful. Thank you. Have a great